And then, Sarah, would you be willing to offer a prayer?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks.
Cool. Dear Heavenly Father, thank thee for this day. Thank thee that we have the ability to learn and grow in our knowledge in accounting. Please bless that as we study, we'll be able to know which things to study and how to answer the questions. And please bless Brother Fox to know how to answer the questions that we may bring to him tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. So as far as general stuff, I see that most of you are already involved in the ethics accounting or the ethics discussion that's going on this week. And again, that shouldn't be something that kills you. It should be just something you jump in there and participate with. And actually, if you read some of the things people put, there's some pretty good discussions going. What's hard is some groups are very active, 15 or 20 posts, and others have like 4. And so you're trying to like just respond to the one other person who's, so do your best, given the information, I guess, that's given to you there. Any other questions about general items in the course for this week? Well, good. So let's talk about some of the specific concepts. So I'm going to just share a little brief presentation on bank reconciliation, which I think most of you probably already get. I'm not sure. And then we can answer any questions. And also, don't be afraid while I'm sharing it to like, never be afraid to just jump in and ask a question. I won't be offended. All right, so let me share my screen with you. Okay. So there's the bank reconciliation process or the procedures. So in essence, what we have to do when we reconcile our bank account is we just want to match up and make sure that our records or our books match up with the bank's record or the bank's statement. And the problem is when we try to do that, we don't necessarily, there are some things that will be on our books but not yet showing up on the bank statement, so we have to make adjustments for that. And then we'll have other things that are showing on the bank statement that are not yet on our books, so we'll have to make adjustments and actually journal entries for those items so that we can record them happening. So this is the process, and then I'm going to walk you through a sample, I guess. So the process is that we take the balance that it says on our bank statement or the balance per the bank statement, and then we make adjustments. And those adjustments are an increase for deposits in transit. Those are amounts that we have deposited, written down in our books, but the bank has not yet recorded on the statement. Those are usually deposits that happen right near the end of the month that just don't end up on the statement yet. Also, we make adjustments for outstanding checks. Those are checks that we've written, again, that we've written down in our books, but are not yet showing up on the bank statement. And then for any bank errors. So if the bank made a mistake, plus or minus, those adjustments will give us our adjusted or corrected balance. And then we take our balance per the books or the balance in our books and make adjustments for any EFT collections or other deposits that we didn't have in our books. So sometimes you get your bank statement and you realize, oh, there was a deposit made into the account that I did not have on the books. So you make an adjustment to the book balance for that. Any NSF or bounce checks, these would be checks that we've written or checks that we've received. Actually, I think this means checks we've received that are non-sufficient funds. So when we received them, we wrote them into our book, and now the bank statement comes back and tells us that money is no longer there, so we have to subtract it back out. Any service charges or other payments to the bank that, again, weren't in our books until we received the bank statement. And then any company errors we've made on our books. So that's the process. So let me take you through a an example. All right. So here we have the Laird Company. I wonder if it's a Scottish Laird. I don't know. Anyway, they have a balance per bank of $15,905 or $907.45, and a balance in their books of $11,709.45. Then we have all of this additional information: deposits in transit, outstanding checks, other deposits, other payments, etc. So what we're going to do is that we're going to start with, just like I showed in the procedures, our cash balance per the bank statement. We're going to add in our deposits in transit, subtract out our outstanding checks, and there were no bank errors, so this will give us our adjusted balance. Then we'll start with our book balance. We will add in these EFTs received. We'll fix our error. We'll subtract out the NSF checks, subtract out the fees and the bank service charge, and that's going to give us our adjusted balance per the book, and it should all match. And it's really that simple. Sometimes these reconciliations seem harder than they really are. So let me go back up. So all of these adjustments we had to make here to our book, we're going to have to make a journal entry for these. Why? Because they're not in our book yet. And the way we get them into our book is by making a journal entry. So collection of electronic funds. So again, when you look at your bank statement, you say, hey, we collected $1,035 from our customers. Sometimes the bank will act as a transfer agent and do that, where people don't pay you directly, they just pay the bank and it goes into your account. That's what this means. So we do an entry to show our cash increasing and our accounts receivable decreasing. For the book error, we would show our cash increasing by $36 and our accounts payable going down by $36. Because the nature of the error, if you remember back to when we had it, was that we wrote it for $12.26, but the bank recorded it for $12.62, which would have put $36. This is our check that we wrote, so it's going to take $36 more out of our account than what was supposed to be. Okay, so here, our cash is going to go up and our accounts payable is going to go down. For the NSF check, what we do is we debit accounts receivable. So since the customer who we thought had paid us didn't pay us because their check bounced, accounts receivable goes up, or the amount of money that's owed to us by the customer goes up, and our cash goes down because money we thought we had received, we haven't. Okay. Bank charges, we have bank charge expense and cash going down. And then, so that's it. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how we do a bank reconciliation. I know I went through it really fast, so if we get to where we have questions or we want to work through a problem, we can do that. The only other items I had on here is sometimes people get confused about what constitutes a cash equivalent. So recognize that a cash equivalent is really any actual cash, that's cash, and then a cash equivalent would be things that are readily convertible to known amounts of cash. And so even though like you might have stock in a company which is readily convertible, I can sell stock at any given point. It's not a cash equivalent because I can't do it for a known amount. Instead, with stock, I'm forced to sell it at the market and kind of get what the market can pay. So it's going to be, the way I think of it is it's either cash or things that can turn into cash within 90 days, okay? And a known amount of cash. And then sometimes there's this concept of what's called restricted cash, which is cash I might have, but it's not available for restricted use. So for example, in my business, as we collect fees from people, a portion of what we collect is sales tax, and we're gonna have to pay that to the government. So we keep track of that amount and recognize that even though there might be $10,000 in our cash account, maybe 2,000 of it is going to have to go to the government for taxes. So we consider that a restricted cash, or a part of our cash balance that we can't actually use.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then here's some specific examples of cash and cash equivalents. And again, treasury bills that are short-term, money market accounts, undeposited customer checks. So when the customer pays you with a check and you stick it in your bank bag and it sits there a day until you deposit it, those are cash equivalents, because those are all things that we can turn into a set amount of cash within 90 days or less. So that was a quick run through. Any questions? Man, I must be the greatest teacher on earth. No question. And I'm humble. Okay. So any items on the homework that we can look at that might be helpful for you? Or is this chapter just like a breath of fresh air and it's so easy comparatively that it's like a piece of cake?
I wish you had told us this chapter was coming up, because the last chapter, when I thought that I might die, I was like, oh, well, this is like not as hard at all.
Believe it or not, I have students every year who find the bank reconciliation to be super hard, and it's like a super hard chapter for them. So if it's one that's relatively like logical to you and it all flows, then count yourself lucky.
Not necessary for everyone. Well, I think it's because I've always kept a checking, like I've always reconciled my checkbook, and I know a lot of people do not. So that might be why that's helpful for me.
I have to be careful, because when I say that I reconcile my checkbook, a lot of people say I'm dating myself. They're like, okay, boomer, go reconcile your checkbook or something. I don't know.
Well, I've actually never used the word reconcile checkbook until right now, but I think just the fact that I do it ages
Right.
Because my kids who are high school and college age, they just look at
and I used to be a lot more careful every month of doing that, and now I'm kind of like, oh, there's still money in there, so it seems legit. Like that's kind of my. If you've ever heard the saying that like the plumbers pipes are always leaky, I think accountants' books are always dirty too. Not dirty, okay, that's not fair, but that makes it sound like I'm stealing or something. But that I don't keep track of them the way I should. My wife is an artist, and she paints big murals for businesses and for things like that. But our house walls are all just plain. She'll go to private customers' homes and paint, $1,500 or $3,000 paintings on their walls, and then our house just has plain blue walls. So same thing. The accountant doesn't keep his books, and the artist has plain walls. It's just life.
Doesn't the rule apply if you still have checks and there must be money?
Well, I used to work with ranchers a lot when I was a stockbroker, and like I seriously believe their way of accounting, like they would come in and they would seriously have a wad of cash in the front bib pocket of their overalls, and it's like revenue is like when they put money in the pocket, and expenses or it's like when they take the big wad of cash out and just pay for stuff. Like these guys would seriously go buy cars and pay. They go look at the sticker, $28,000, and then just pull out that wad of cash and start. And then the car salesman are like, no, that's the sticker price. You're supposed to try to talk me down. No, it's okay. I got enough here. Like that's just it was an interesting group of people. And ones that would have oil leases and stuff on their land, they'd have a bunch of cash, and they'd come in and be like, hey, got a little extra cash built up. Can you put this $50,000 in my account? And I'm like, that's a little bit extra cash to you? Especially because I was like 26 at the time and had 5 kids, and we were just poor no matter what we made. Anyway. All right, sorry, that's not what we were talking about. Any questions about homework stuff?
I have a question, and I was rushing to come in here and I should have brought it with me, but could you explain the term, and let me think of what it is. It's in the bank reconciliation, the note It's just worded funny to me, and it's so I can't wrap my brain around it. It's something like receipt of note given, or I don't know what it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it note receivable?
It's basically you're receiving a note. You know, I mean, you're receiving money from a note, but the way it's worded, it almost sounds like you're paying a note. So that was confusing to me a little
Is it on one of the homework problems that we can look at it specifically, or where did you see it at?
Physical.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I think I did write it down, but I'm not sure where. It was in the homework, and it was in the reconciliations. It's just the wording for receiving a note, basically, but I figured it out, but I can't get it straight in my
Sure,
mind.
I just want to see if I can look at it so I can give a better answer that's, you know, because people do set up so that the bank is the collector of notes for them. So people just make their payment to the bank, and then the bank deposits the money into the person's account. That's a thing. And so you could be a collection on a note receivable, but without looking exactly at what the problem says.
Physical custody of assets do not have access to.
So let's see, I'm looking at, you know, if it was part 1 or part 2 homework, or are you not sure?
Not sure, but I think it was 2 because it was the actual problems.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have been more prepared.
It's okay, you're still a good person.
Thank you.
I mean, I think so. I don't even know you really. You seem nice. Let's see.
The fact that I did my homework, does that
Has zero to do with your worth as a human being. Like, there's people who do their homework and they're terrible, and there's other, you know, and there's people who don't do homework at all and they're still pretty decent. It's a funny thing. I don't know. There might be a correlation of some sort. Anyway, so let's see. Let me share my screen. I do appreciate you doing your work. Don't get me wrong. All right. So this is the Oriole Company bank reconciliation.
I don't believe it would be on this one, but
Oh,
there you
not
go.
this one?
No, that's not it.
Okay. This is the cash budget, so it's probably not that one. Trying to remember which other one has bank reconciliation on it. Is it this one?
No, because that's an EFT, so I don't want to waste your time. I'm sorry. I should have come more prepared.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just, like I said, I'm not sure how to explain it without seeing it. Okay, well, does anybody else have a question?
I have sort of a general, maybe general question. It's not a homework question.
Okay.
I was wondering, I read that using an employer credit card reduces fraud, and I was wondering why.
Reducing an employer's credit, or sorry, using an employer's credit card does what?
Reduces fraud.
Yeah, so, okay, so here's why, because so the other option to using employer credit cards is to have the employee, I don't know if it reduces fraud. There's just two different, so you know, the one way is to do reimbursement, right? So the employee goes and pays for something, then turns in a receipt, and the employer you know, pays that receipt. I guess the other option would be to like give the employee some sort of cash account, like an expense account or something like that. So the use of a card just means that every single purchase you make is going to be trackable, right? It's going to, you know, it's going to say exactly where you spent the money. So I'm assuming that they mean like over the use of, say, cash accounts, say petty cash, like some businesses have, you know, the office people can, the office staff can spend up to $500 on things, and certainly the likelihood of somebody misusing that at some point or pocketing some of that cash.
Maybe that's the section I read it in my head. I've only ever worked somewhere where I might pay for something and give my receipt.
Right.
So I was comparing it to that, and I was like, the only thing I could think of was, well, duplication, like turning in the same receipt twice.
Yeah.
It'd
No.
be harder because it's on the credit card.
Yeah. No. So it actually, reimbursement is pretty foolproof, right? Because at the end of the day, if somebody submits a receipt for reimbursement and it's not for an approved expense, you can just say, no, sorry, I'm not reimbursing you. It might make them mad, but that involves somebody having to prove they spent something for a company purpose before they get any money out of the company. I would say in some ways that's safer than a credit card, because somebody could take the credit card and go spend it on crazy stuff, and you don't catch that until after the fact.
Even though they would be responsible for it, the company's responsible for it.
Right. But compared to cash accounts, it's definitely an improvement.
Compared to cash, yeah. I'm going to try to find where I read that. But y'all move on.
All right.
Can I interject just for a second? There's two reasons that I know of. One, that you can put a limit on it if it's a company card, and two, the mail or the bill comes to the company rather than to the individual. So they could abuse it, but it's hard to be fraudulent.
Limits to that abuse, and you're going to get caught, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Still, I don't know if that's an improvement over reimbursement, because reimbursement, we don't pay any money until you prove it's. But the other thing is like here at the college where I work, usually we're buying small things, but like so I'm the division head for all of the business courses. I just put in a thing to buy $250,000 worth of computers. I couldn't have purchased that and then asked for reimbursement, right? I had to go through another process. But for something like that, we do a purchase order process where, we get it from the supplier. I write out their needs when we need it. It gets approved up the chain. We go to the supplier. They agree to deliver to us, and then the college will pay within 30 days. And so that's another process we use to keep things safe.
Okay, those are good points. Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts, or I don't know, musings on life in general?
You may have covered this already, but that last test that was supposed to be so easy really whooped me.
I never said it was so easy. I said a lot of people find it easier.
That wasn't one of them.
I didn't say it was easy.
I got whipped too.
I will say that, and I was proved wrong. And what I mean by that is I think only about half of students actually scored better on that third exam than on the second exam. So in this case, not a lot of students found it easier. About half the people, and I doubt they found it easier or harder. I don't know.
Brother Todd?
What's that?
Oh, I just had a question about that exam. I was just wondering when the answers would become available, like so I could see what I did wrong.
Never.
Yeah, we can't make the answers available.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But
sorry,
I think,
poorly on drugs.
Nice. I think being on drugs might have helped that exam feel a lot nicer.
Actually, I did better. I did better than I did my last exam. Go figure.
All right, there's the secret, guys. Painkillers. I think it makes me a better parent too. So I'm probably about to get fired and maybe released from my calling all at once. So I have to be careful with what I say.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I like my calling. I want to stick with it. It's not my dream. My dream calling is to be like a financial clerk. That'd be the best job on earth. Any calling where you could like finish, like put it in the folder and put it away and know you were actually done. That'd be lovely, because that doesn't happen in most callings.
That makes sense.
Sounds nice. I always envy our financial clerk. Like, where are you going? Oh, I'm done. do you mean you're done? I'm done. I finished everything. And I'm thinking like,
They do get audited though. My husband was that for a while. They do get
yeah,
audited.
but our financial clerk's been there forever. And like the auditors come in and they're like, oh, it's David. Okay, this should be quick. This guy is the most, like, I've never met a person who, it's kind of like not fun to do tithing with him because he's like, he does everything very specifically in exactly the same way and not fast. You do it at this, and he never makes mistakes like that. But I'm like, dude, let's get this done. I got people to go visit. And you know, my in-laws are coming over for dinner. Like, we got to get this done. And he's just like, nope, we do it at this pace. But that's a good trait to have. He's an engineer outside of that, so he's careful. It's good. Anyway, so if you've ever wondered what are they doing in that office, you're not missing much. Just so you know, it's mostly accounting stuff. All right.
Can I ask another general question really quick?
Sure.
So my discussion group was one of those that has like one person other than me. Can I count? I answered to two of her. She answered 2 questions and I just responded to 2.
Yeah, all you can do is all you
the same or?
Yes, that's fine. I hope by now it doesn't seem like I'm going in there and like just slashing people's grades just so I can. Like I recognize that you can only do what you can do. It's frustrating because I put like 12 people in each of those groups, and so when only 2 or 3 people are participating, and again, this goes back to that warning I made at the beginning of the semester, which was like all those little things, they add up. So those people who aren't participating are the ones that about this stage of the semester will be emailing me and saying, well, like, what can I do for extra credit? And the answer is, well, you could have done the things for regular credit. And that's not me trying to be mean. You know, at the very beginning, I had mentioned those little things are often the difference between the 68% and the 70%. For people who are right on the margins, or the 79% and the 81%. And so the short answer to your question, yes, I will accept that. Do the best you can with what's happening in your group. You'll probably have people trying to put all 3 of those things in on Saturday. The first response, the second response, and
yeah, I probably won't check it and then I'll forget. So I like to do it early.
Yeah, it's a dirty trick to have any assignment that's like, do the first part of it by Thursday and the last part of it by Saturday, because you're like, I did it, and then your brain like turns off if you're like me. And I'm thinking I took care of that. Which again goes back to parenting. Somehow I remember to feed my kids each day, even though that's part of me thinking I already did that, right? Now they're big enough that they just forage. They can. I just buy those $1 Walmart frozen pizzas. I buy like 12 of them at a time. They're good.
They are good.
For $1, they're great, and the kids take care of it. It's good. Those of you with little children, someday you will be at the stage of like, man, little kids were hard. Teenagers are hard, like in a different way.
I've got one that eats 2 dinners every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that $1 pizza wouldn't go far. I literally, he eats around 5:30 and then he eats around 9 o'clock. It's 2 full huge dinners.
Yeah, we had a couple. Our one that eats like that, we had 2 that eat like that. We have 8 kids, so and our 2 that eat like that are both living on their own and paying for their own food now. So it's wonderful. And my one was one of my girls. She's like she's the smallest person in our family, and she was a cross country runner and stuff, and she would just eat and eat and eat. It's unbelievable. Now she married a guy who eats like that, so I'm like, I don't know what your guys' grocery bill is, but now she doesn't eat as much because she doesn't run as much. Now that she moved out, she goes cheap. See, that's how it is.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Any other? I'm sorry if I'm going on tangents tonight. Hopefully, it makes this a little more, exciting.
Makes me feel normal right now.
Well, if there's no other questions, that's a good thing, right? It means this chapter is a chance to catch your breath and hopefully move on.
One of the issues that I was concerned about reading it, the banking part of it wasn't a concern, but are we going to have to memorize all the terminology that was in the first part of the chapter?
What terminology do you mean? Like the cash equivalents and things, or?
Yeah, the fraud. Sorry, obviously haven't memorized it. You know, the preventions of fraud, all that, you know, the specific terms.
I think there's a question or two about those terms on the exam, yeah.
To the same degree that they were on the homework kind of a thing, or?
It's hard for me to say from my memory. I haven't reviewed the exam, but, you know, I mean, you've already seen that they'll throw in all these problems and then they'll like throw in this one-off, like I think on the last exam, there was a question about, what's it called when you, you know, when you instead of a return, you have something that's defective and they just credit you for it. And so allowance, right? And that question like caught a lot of people off guard, because it was like, just out of all these problems, it's like, oh, here's this term that was in the reading, allowances. Do you know what it are? And, you know, and people got it and some people didn't. But so I guess I want to tell you, like, yeah, you have to be responsible for those terms too. But I would take a look at the exam checklist and see, because again, I think a good way to study is to look at that exam checklist and then sort of envision, well, what type of questions would come out of this bullet point. You know,
and then twist it all around so it sounds really weird.
Yeah, and then twist it so it's like, do you understand this material not only forwards but backwards, and from a weird side angle?
That's my struggle, is I second guess myself. You know, I'll read the question and it doesn't make sense to me in the terms that I studied it. And so I second guess myself. I would imagine that a lot of things I get wrong is because I had in my mind the right answer, but the way it's worded, I second guess myself.
Yeah, I think the thing that frustrates me about the way the exams are worded is that people sometimes leave the exam, or, you know, they see their grade and they think, I must totally not understand this material. And then, like, when you review it and look at their stuff, you think, oh, they understood the material pretty well. You know, maybe not amazingly well, but they understood the broad concepts well. But the questions lead to making errors, even for someone who knows the content pretty well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was mentioning this to another student, is when I talk with the textbook publishers and I say, so, you know, why do you make this so difficult? And in essence, their answer is, well, accounting is about attention to detail. And I agree with that. Anybody who's worked in accounting knows it's about attention to detail. It's about recognizing when something's a little off so you can figure out where the error is. But I always tell them that Accounting 1 and Accounting 2, so financial and managerial accounting, are not courses for accountants. That of the 100 people I have in these two sections, 5 of them are going to go on to actually work as accountants. And the other 95 were business marketing majors and entrepreneurship majors and you know, business majors of some sort, who needed an understanding of the concepts of accounting, but probably weren't going to do the accounting themselves. But that falls on deaf ears, and maybe I should write a textbook.
There you go.
In my spare time. Anyway.
Cheryl, I don't know if you do a lot of the practice tests. Do you do those? Like, I literally do every single thing from Brother Fox's document that he gave us at the beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that one. Okay, I do everything from there. And I have felt like on the tests that I feel more prepared for them. I think it's because of the self-study test. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I'm going to show it just in case. What I've been finding is I talk to people that a lot of people don't know about it. So you keep talking and I'm going to pull it up right now.
I literally do every single thing on that document that you're going to pull up and show.
And maybe that's what's embarrassing at this point in time, because I did that as well. But
Well, yeah, I don't
just
know. I
felt
mean, I
like,
prayed a lot too.
yeah, did that
There
too.
was a lot of But those self-tests, I mean, I know everybody gets a different bank of questions, but some of those self-tests, they weren't the exact same question, but because I had studied the self-test and understood what all the other answers could have been, I felt better prepared. I will say though, this test took me a lot longer to take than the test right before it. The test right before it, I felt better about, but this last one, the whole test when I was taking it, I thought, I don't know how this is going to work out. And it worked out fine. But I felt like doing everything in this thing, I don't know, maybe that's not helpful for Cheryl. Maybe that's helpful for somebody else though.
Well, I think it's excellent advice. I totally agree with it. And I can easily chalk it up to the fact that my brain doesn't work properly, but I agree. That's very helpful. I just couldn't, there were a lot of things that I really wasn't sure about.
Right.
I wasn't sure. It wasn't the concept I wasn't sure about. It was answering the question that I wasn't sure about.
They asked it.
Yeah, I agree. I said, what I like about these self-tests is I feel like the wording of them is much closer to the wording you see in the exams than like what you see on the homework.
That's what I feel like. I feel like if I understood those well, it helped. It's not like those questions were on the test, but
right.
It was helpful. If somebody's not doing that, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, and then a lot of people like where I do these little self-test walkthroughs. They keep asking me why I don't do them for the additional self-tests too. But I just haven't got to it. And again, some people are like, that's awesome. You go through it and you explain how you do each problem. And other people are like, oh, it's just a video of him talking more. So it depends on the person. But some people learn from it and it's helpful to them.
Yeah.
So,
and I have to say my biggest gripe about, and you've already covered it, but if I could see the test after the fact and see what I did wrong, I would learn it. And I can't learn it if I don't know what I did wrong and what I did right. And that's, whether or not accountants have to have attention to detail, you can't have attention to something you don't have access to.
Right. And when we make that argument to the accounting department, their counter argument is the test is not for learning. That everything else, the homework, the quizzes, everything else is for learning, and the test is to measure what was learned. And of course, the counter is, well, that's just completely unsatisfying. But
well, even if that's the case, then it should be the same as what you've learned, so that it makes sense in your head. You know.
And their counter to that statement is, if we make it exactly the same as what you learned, it doesn't really measure if you've fully internalized and understood it. That's just measured if you can regurgitate. We're trying to include it to make people think deeper. And so I'm not saying I necessarily agree that the exams make you think deeper but that's, I guess what I'm saying is recognize there's a course council and these discussions get had. And in fact, just recently our representative to the course council solicited, input from all the faculty members again, and those very same topics came up again. There's instructors that are like, you've got to let students see their results. How, and so I'm sure it's going to get talked about again this summer. They'll have a course council meeting. So we can hope. It doesn't help you very much.
Yeah. It's like talking to teenagers. Always a rebuttal.
Yeah. Well, the good news is there is some solid pedagogical research going on behind this, that there just isn't 100% agreement. There's a couple of camps. In other words, and the powers that be in our department are from the one camp. And so when we make the argument, it's not like it's a rebuttal based on emotion. It's a rebuttal based on look at the research. And then us saying, well, look at this research. Hey, it sounds a lot like half the other things happening in the world right now, right? Where we don't know, we've got a disease going around that we don't know exactly how tightly we should shut everything down for. And if you try to appeal to research, you'll get a lot of different, even viewpoints in the research right now. Anyway, so I guess that's just the world.
I recognize that too. Everybody learns differently. Everybody tests differently. And I was just frustrated.
Yeah, I know. I understand. All right. Well, I don't know if we talked about a lot of specific homework stuff today, but I feel like we've aired our grievances and now we move on to acceptance or something. I don't know. This is like a support group. We're on step 3.
Sounds like
Anyway.
Festivus.
What's that?
Isn't that Festivus for the airing of the grievances?
Yes, it's Festivus. If anybody's wondering what Festivus is, just go to YouTube and check it out. It's a Seinfeld thing. Thanks for helping me to admit that I, at one stage of my life, watched a show that was pretty much incredibly inappropriate. Thanks, Tish.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, did you not understand that that was a confession on my part as well, that I recognize the airing of the grievances?
That's that. Yes. Anyway. All right. Yeah. Festivus for the rest of us. All right. Well, on that spiritual note, is there anything else before we say a prayer? And of course, a discussion of Festivus. This recording will work perfectly, and I'll have it up and posted.
I'm not sure if I'm remembering right, but did you mention that we could review similar questions one-on-one on the exams that we missed? Or am I remembering wrong?
So yeah, you'll see right now I'm working on posting sort of comments on the exams, which takes me a few days. And then, and then I kind of, in that will say, if anybody wants a little more detail about what they missed, and I'll provide that. Some people find that helpful and some don't. And then I'll also offer a chance to meet and talk about it one-on-one. So yeah, that opportunity will be forthcoming. I already have one person who's requested that. I just need to get through reviewing all the exams first. It takes me a few days.
Thank you.
All right. So why don't we end with a prayer? And since Sarah started today. Is there anyone, Cheryl, would you be willing to offer a closing prayer?
Sure.
All right.
Our dearest kind Father in heaven, we're so grateful to Thee for the multitude of blessings which Thou pourest down upon us. We're grateful that we have this opportunity to attend BYU Idaho and learn new concepts and glean from those things that which will be helpful in our lives. We're grateful for Brother Fox and for his patience and his help and his knowledge, and for the opportunity we have to share this time with him and discuss those things which are of concern in this class. We pray as students that we may do our best and make the efforts that are needed to learn what we need to learn at this point in time. And we ask Thy blessings upon our instructor as well and his family, and pray that we may go forth this night and keep Thy Spirit with us. And we pray for these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Fox.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.